Hello, welcome back to the Breaking News Update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you are watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I have a ton of big news that I'd like to share with you in today's video. So, we're going to start off talking about yesterday's talks in Saudi Arabia with the US and also Ukraine, and we also gave you guys a huge update that Ukraine had accepted a 30-day temporary ceasefire proposal from the United States to at least ceasefire with Russia for right now. So I have a new update here on your screen. US to present ceasefire plan to Russia today. Is Russia likely to accept? The prospects for a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine are in Moscow's hands, a top aide to Ukrainian President Zelensky said, following successful US-Ukraine talks in Saudi Arabia. Okay, so again, as far as we know right now, Ukraine has accepted this deal, and it looks like today, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who's the man on the left side of your screen in the red tie, he's going to be presenting this proposal to Russia today, and we'll see if Russia ends up accepting it. I'm not sure if we'll get an update today on that, or maybe in the next 24 to 48 hours. But from what I'm hearing, looks like the Kremlin is going to review this proposal. Maybe they'll accept, maybe they won't. But I'm thinking it's highly likely they won't accept it. But again, that's just a prediction. We'll see what happens here over the next few days. So we're going to start off talking more about this ceasefire deal that should come into effect if Russia accepts it. And we also had reports of last night, just literally hours after the US and Ukraine talks ended in Saudi Arabia, we had Russia launching ballistic missiles into Ukraine. The port of Odesa got hit, and there was a grain ship taking a direct hit, and 4 of the crewmen had died. I believe it was an Iskander ballistic missile that struck that ship. So I've got pictures coming out from there and also a video in the Odessa area. Also, Kryvyi Rih getting hit again last night. I believe it was some sort of high-rise, either apartment building or a hotel. I believe it was a hotel, but we have been reporting a lot inside of Kryvyi Rih, just hotels being destroyed like crazy over there. Not sure why Russia's doing that, but they have come out multiple times and stated they were striking Ukrainian servicemen that were staying inside of these hotels. So I'm not really sure what that's all about, but we'll go over that information as well. Then we're also going to talk a lot about Kursk today, as the Kursk region does not look good for Ukraine, and things have been unraveling very quickly over there. And literally just in the last 18 hours, there's lots of reports coming out that Ukraine could be starting to pull out from the Kursk region. It looks like they're retreating in some areas, and the Russians could have also entered the stronghold city of Sudza. So that is very big news today. We'll talk about that. So let's go ahead and jump into all the news, guys. We're going to hop on over here to X and start sharing this information with you. We'll start off here with next, is the end of the war closer? U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that Washington will present Russia with a ceasefire proposal today. According to him, Ukraine is ready to halt all military actions in exchange for certain steps from Russia. The U.S. expects Moscow to raise issues related to European sanctions and frozen assets during the negotiations. Rubio also mentioned that the agenda includes prisoner exchanges and the return of children affected by the conflict. So yeah, Russia's probably going to have a lot to talk about, so I wouldn't expect Russia to come out and agree to this or disagree or deny it anytime soon. It's probably going to take a few days, I would think, because there's just so much that Russia's probably going to want to bring to the table before they decide to agree on anything. And who knows, maybe there might even be some amendments that might get changed on Russia's end when it comes to this deal before they even accept anything. And that's if they do. So we'll see if they do here in the next few days. Also, for more translated, if Russia says no, then we will need to analyze everything and determine our place in the world and what they intend to do. If they say no, it will reveal a lot about their goals and intentions, said U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He also added that the U.S. believes satellites could be used to monitor the ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia. So yeah, we'll see if they end up accepting this, guys. I mean, I think it's highly unlikely that Russia will, because in a lot of ways, it almost seems like Russia doesn't want peace. I mean, with a lot of things that we see, just like I told you guys yesterday, right after these talks had ended, soon after, Russia was already pounding Ukraine with ballistic missiles and striking that port of Odessa, killing innocent people that were aboard that ship that I'll show you guys, and then Kryvyi Rih getting hit, another hotel. So it almost seems in some ways like Russia doesn't want peace. So we'll have to see if they end up accepting this. Also from Bliskovka, U.S. Secretary of State Rubio commented on how the ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia could be monitored. There are a lot of eyes on the ground and above commercial satellites. It will be quite difficult to hide strikes by drones, missiles, ballistics, artillery. We believe it will be possible to monitor this. He added that the parties will need to decide who will monitor the ceasefire. Yeah, so that's going to be a tough one because the front line is absolutely massive. I mean, it's a huge front line. It's thousands of kilometers, I believe. And it's going to be very difficult to monitor and make sure both sides are not attacking each other. But it looks like they could be using satellites to try to monitor the situation and make sure the ceasefire holds. And we'll see if that happens to even come in effect, first of all. Now, from Anton Yeroshenko, Peskov has voiced the Kremlin's reaction to yesterday's Ukraine-U.S. talks and the suggestion of the ceasefire. Russia wants to get information from the United States first. Contacts are planned within the next few days. So far, there are no agreements about a phone conversation between President Trump and Putin. If necessary, it can be arranged very quickly. Russia expects Secretary of State Rubio and National Security Advisor Waltz to inform it on the details of the negotiations. Okay, so again, it looks like there's going to be a lot of talking to do on the Russian side before they decide to even agree with anything. So that's why I think personally it'll probably be a few days before we hear any kind of a response from Russia. But let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think Russia is going to accept this ceasefire proposal, or do you think they're not going to? But I think, if anything, they're probably going to have major demands before they decide to accept anything, because typically Russia has had some pretty wild demands before accepting any kind of a ceasefire proposal from Ukraine. So now also it's from next breaking, Putin unlikely to accept U.S. 30-day ceasefire proposal. Russian sources reveal that President Vladimir Putin is unlikely to agree to the U.S. proposal for a 30-day ceasefire in Ukraine. Kremlin insists that any agreement would need to address Russian battlefield advances and ensure guarantees for Russia's position. Russia controls a significant portion of Ukraine, and Putin has previously ruled out short-term ceasefires without long-term peace guarantees. Moscow wants Ukraine to drop its NATO ambitions and withdraw from the territories which Russia considers legally annexed. The source was Reuters today. So yeah, guys, I mean, it looks likely that maybe Putin is not going to accept this ceasefire deal, but I think it really comes down to a lot of the fine details and, Russia's demands at the end of the day. Because if some of their demands are not met, they're probably going to go ahead and reject this ceasefire, and I think we'll continue to see this war carry on. But I was hearing as well some rumors that maybe Trump might try to pressure Russia with like sanctions, and also warning Russia that if they do not accept this ceasefire, they might go ahead and rearm Ukraine with lots of heavy weaponry, and this war will carry on, okay? Because Trump was kind of stating that with reporters yesterday, that this war will just continue, basically, if they don't accept it. A lot more innocent people are going to die, or people that don't need to die and lose their lives, so we'll see what happens with this situation. Also from Max 24, no one will recognize the occupied territories as Russian. This is the ultimate red line. This is what Zelensky stated today. He was coming out again, reaffirming his position and stating that all the territories that Russia has taken over, they will never recognize these areas as Russian, and that's also been a big demand from Russia as well. They've wanted Ukraine to recognize these territories as Russian territory, like the Luhansk region, Donetsk region, Zaporizhzhia, Kherson. All these areas that have been taken, they want Ukraine to recognize them as Russian territory. So you guys can let me know what you think on that, but that's definitely going to be a tough one for Russia and Ukraine to figure out. Now from next to Zelensky, we are ready for a 30-day ceasefire, but we do not trust the Russians. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that Ukraine is ready for a 30-day ceasefire in the format proposed by the U.S. side. However, he emphasized that no one in Ukraine trusts the Russians after everything they have endured. He also noted that it is important for him to end the war and hopes for the U.S. Support of the U.S. and Europe in pressuring Russia to peace. Zelensky clarified that Ukrainian troops in Kursk region continue to carry out their task despite pressure from Russia, and that the military command is doing everything to save the lives of Ukrainian soldiers. He also pointed out the elections in Ukraine will take place only after the war ends and martial law is lifted. So yeah, it looks like Zelensky's not too fond of Russia. Clearly, I mean, they've been at war for a very long time, and we know how Zelensky feels about Vladimir Putin especially, and their trust for the Russians. That are the Russians going to uphold this ceasefire? Are they not going to attack Ukraine, or will they attack Ukraine? And that's also why Marco Rubio is talking about ways of trying to monitor the front line and make sure Russia doesn't attack Ukraine, or Ukraine doesn't attack Russia during this ceasefire, and that's all hostilities cease, at least for 30 days. So it looks like Ukraine is worried about that at the moment. Also, for more translated, Zelensky, our army is using long range weapons of national production. This is not a show of force. It is a fair response to what Russia is doing. Today, the Russian Federation struck a hotel in Kryvyi Rih. Do you think Ukraine will not respond to this? So he's actually talking about, I believe, maybe their missile production or, their longer range drones. They have like these Peklo drones, Palinitsia rocket drones. So he was discussing the fact today that they have their own long range weapons they can use to attack Russia with. And he's basically stating they're going to respond to that strike on Kryvyi Rih today that I'll show you guys. That was like a hotel that was struck today. So he was coming out stating that in an interview. Now, for Mosin Defender, the Polish Ministry of National Defense confirms that the flow of U.S. military aid and equipment to Ukraine through the hub at Sheshov Jasyanka, if I'm saying that right, airport, has resumed flowing at yesterday's negotiations in Saudi Arabia. Okay, so this is just confirmation to let you guys know that Poland is now stating they are starting to continue flows of military aid into Ukraine, as we know that Poland is a major hub for Western supplied weapons for Ukraine. They stop there before they go into Ukraine. So it looks like the Polish Ministry of National Defense confirmed that today. All right, now from Astra, Ukraine confirms yesterday's strike on a cargo ship in Odesa region, 4 killed. The head of the public council at Odesa's military administration, Suri Brachuk, confirmed the deaths of 4 people after an Iskander missile hit a vessel on March 11th. Preliminary reports indicate that 3 of the deceased crew members of the MJ Pinar were Syrian nationals, 1 Ukrainian. Barbados-flagged MJ Pinar was set to deliver grain to Algeria. So yeah, literally hours after, we can see the damage here to the ship, but hours after the talks in Saudi Arabia and with Ukraine and the U.S. had ended and Ukraine had accepted that 30-day ceasefire, this is exactly what Russia did. They not only targeted Kryvyi Rih, but also the port of Odessa, and we had this grain ship being hit, the MJ Pinar, okay, and 4 of the crewmen had unfortunately died. You can see a lot of the damage to the ship from this ballistic missile directly striking it, okay? So here's video also from Vicegrad 24 breaking. A Russian missile just struck a Barbados-flagged cargo ship in the port of Odessa. It was about to transport wheat to Algeria. 4 people in the crew were killed, 3 Syrians, 1 Ukrainian. So just a quick video, guys, 7 seconds long. Looks like somebody's able to capture this ballistic missile striking this ship. Take a look.
Давайте, девочки, одеваемся.
All right, pretty massive explosion there in the background at the port of Odessa when this grain ship was directly hit. So again, that's why I was kind of stating earlier, does Russia actually want peace? Because right after Ukraine, agrees to this ceasefire proposal, immediately we're seeing Russia attacking this ship. So pretty crazy news coming out from here. Now moving on to Vicegrad 24 once again. Breaking, a Russian double-tap ballistic missile strike has hit Kryvyi Rih, killing a 47-year-old woman and wounding 12. A double-tap strike is when a second missile hits around 20 minutes after the first to target rescue services arriving on the scene. So we just reported a double-tap strike. Was it in Kharkiv recently? I forgot exactly where it was at. Somewhere inside of Ukraine, we had a double-tap strike where Russia will hit a target like a hotel like this, for example, and then emergency crews show up. Soon after, they get hit again, and a lot of times the emergency crews get taken out. So it looks like we had a major attack here inside of Kryvyi Rih, and this is exactly what Zelensky was talking about today, stating that they are going to respond to this, as I believe he also stated that there's no more hotels standing inside of Kryvyi Rih anymore. They've all been destroyed. So I wonder why Russia's been targeting all these hotels. There's got to be a reason for that. But the only information that I've been hearing really on the Russian side in terms of why they've been attacking these hotels, they're claiming that, Ukrainian troops are inside of these. So that could be the reason why they're doing that. We don't really know. I mean, it's not too far away from the front line where Kryvyi Rih is at, but nonetheless, we've been seeing a pattern of hotels being targeted by the Russians in Kryvyi Rih. Now we'll jump on to talking about the Kursk region. We've got a lot of reports over here that the Ukrainians could be pulling out, at least partially. So for Max 24, some of the Ukrainian brigades, including the most combat ready, have left the Kursk region, according to Forbes. So this was a picture coming out showing the Kursk region starting to look like it's collapsing, is what it's looking like to me. I mean, if you look at the map here, the blue that Ukraine is controlling, it's down to Sudza, okay? It was much further out over here at one point. And, right after we started to hear earlier this week that The Russians had been storming into Sudzha using like a pipeline or something. We heard that that Ukraine reportedly had stopped that assault. There was like hundreds of soldiers trying to go through a pipeline that was underground, and basically after that, we've been seeing the Kursk front over here just starting to collapse, and it looks like Ukraine could be pulling out. But I do have some reports that are kind of conflicting, showing that they're not completely pulling out. Maybe it's a strategic withdrawal for right now, but there's definitely heavy fighting ongoing over here right now. Here's another report from next breaking. Russian forces raised the flag at the Sudzha administration building, marking a significant development in the Kursk region. Ukrainian troops are retreating, citing logistical challenges. Some units have already evacuated from the region. Russian forces have liberated key settlements as footage shows the Russian flags raised in the city center. Meanwhile, Russian propagandists claim that the Russian army has supposedly taken control of Sudzha. However, no official confirmation yet. Despite claims of a major Russian victory, experts warn it's too early to confirm the city's full capture. So we've got a video here that reportedly shows Russian troops inside the city center of Sudzha, which was a major stronghold for Ukraine inside the Kursk region. So I want to show you guys this real quick, and then we'll come back.
Десантники, совместно работают группы. Все, кто принимал участие в освобождении Суджи, аэродромов. Вот она совместная работа. Десантники.
All right, so is this evidence of Ukraine getting kicked out of the Kursk region? It's possible it might be, at least in the city of Sudzha. Maybe Ukraine has had to fall back south of Sudzha, but we know there's just heavy fighting going on over here right now. And to me, it doesn't make sense that Ukraine would completely withdraw yet, because we're not even at the point where we're getting a ceasefire deal in place. And I'm sure Ukraine would want to utilize the territory that they're controlling up here for their negotiations. So the timing of this is definitely interesting. And we'll have to see how this plays out, because I know Ukraine would want to hold this territory to use it for negotiations. So it says here from Max 24 now, there is no complete withdrawal of AFU from Sudzha. Secretary of the Verkhovna Rada Committee Kostenko said today. Okay, so now we're hearing reports that Ukraine's not completely pulling out. So I don't know what's really going on over here. It's just changing so rapidly. So we're gonna have to constantly monitor the situation. So maybe Ukraine is getting pushed out of Sudzha, but maybe they're not completely pushed out yet. Maybe they're fighting on the outskirts of the town. We don't really know just yet, but we'll give you some more updates here. Now for Max 24, Russians are trying to break through the border in Sumy region unsuccessfully, State Border Service of Ukraine reported. Okay, so we've been hearing this a lot over the last probably 4 or 5 days now, that the Russians are continuously trying to push over the border here. This is the border, this kind of purplish line. The blue indicates where Ukraine is still kind of fighting in the Kursk region right now. But you can definitely see this area completely has collapsed. I mean, ever since we started to see that push right here, this kind of white center here in between these two blue areas, this is where Russia had launched an offensive through here, cutting through the center of the territory where Ukraine is currently controlling. And we heard that the supply line right here, this major highway that heads into the Kursk region, was being targeted potentially with like FPV drones as the Russians were getting close to the border with Ukraine. So yeah, things are just looking very tense over here, but Ukraine has been losing a lot of territory in the Kursk region. If they have not been completely pushed out yet, we're still waiting for further confirmation on that. Now for the Ukrainian Review, fighting continues on the outskirts of Sudzha, writes Deep State. Situation remains difficult. Defense forces are doing everything possible to stop the enemy's advance. Zelensky said the Ukrainian troops continue to carry out tasks in the Kursk region. Okay, so what I'm thinking overall, based on all this information, is that Ukraine is still in the Kursk region right now, but they are getting pushed out very quickly, and they're losing territory much faster than they ever were in the recent past. So that's not good news for Ukraine, and we'll see if by the time Russia and Ukraine can agree to some sort of deal, if Ukraine is still controlling any territory up here. But as of right now, they're losing it pretty quick, so we'll see what happens. Now for Max 24, again, Ukrainian soldiers writes that AFU are currently massively shelling Russian positions in Sudzha. So again, we're hearing major gunfights over here right now and massive shelling going on near Sudzha, as it looks like the Russians are starting to push into that city. So we'll wait for more further updates on Sudzha later. But here's a video coming out also from Igor Sushko. Russia-Ukrainian strike on Russian military base in Kozyrevka, if I'm saying that right, in the Kursk region, reportedly HIMARS, 21 kilometers northeast of Sudzha. Okay, so just a little bit northeast of Susa, we had a Russian military base being struck with potentially HIMARS. So this is probably all that heavy shelling that we're hearing about. Take a look at this. Okay, just a quick clip of 9 seconds, but we can see lots of damage over here at potentially this military base inside the Kursk region. Okay, so Ukraine looks like they're still fighting hard. I mean, if they're launching strikes over here, it's probably to prevent the Russians from pushing forward and forcing them out of the Kursk region. So it looks like it's just a very tense situation. Doesn't look like Ukraine has completely pulled out yet. But again, things are changing so quickly over here. So all of a sudden, we could hear that Ukraine has withdrawn from the Kursk region. So it really depends on how fast Russia's moving. And so far, they're moving pretty quick. Now for Max 24, again, Ukraine's most combat-ready brigades have been withdrawn from the Kursk region, according to Forbes. My friends managed to leave Kursk and avoid encirclement. It's a shame it came to this, but that's the reality, one soldier said. So maybe some units are starting to be taken out of the Kursk region due to this Russian assault. And I wonder what happened over here. How did it collapse so quickly? And, why is Ukraine all of a sudden having to start, pulling out multiple units out of the Kursk region? It was literally right after we heard that Russia had launched that offensive on the southern portion of the territory they were controlling. And then soon after, that's when that infiltration through the pipes came into Susa. And now all of a sudden, we're starting to hear lots of bad news coming out from Kursk. So let me know what you guys think on that. Now from Igor Sushko, breaking: Russian captain of the Solong cargo ship rammed into the stationary U.S. tanker loaded with 220,000 barrels of jet fuel for the U.S. military. He's under arrest. So this is an update today from a story that came out actually on March 10th, 2 days ago. I actually didn't cover this story, and I apologize. But I want to talk some more about this today. Here's this other update from Igor Sushko. U.S. tanker Stella Immaculate, servicing the U.S. Navy, rammed by Solong cargo ship at 18 miles per hour on the coast of Britain. Okay, this was 2 days ago. U.S. Defense Department contracted ship was at anchor and fully loaded, preparing to unload jet fuel and other products to service the U.S. military. So yeah, there was a ship that was just off the coast of Britain and was ready to offload some jet fuel for the U.S. military and some other products, and it got rammed by this Solong cargo ship. And what we're starting to hear today is that it was a Russian national that was actually the captain of this ship. So was this Russia deliberately crashing into this thing? Apparently, it was floating along for a very long time, I think for several kilometers, before it crashed into this U.S. military ship or cargo ship that was delivering this jet fuel and other products, right? And basically, the ship exploded, and the cargo ship took damage too. I think this is the cargo ship right here. So why did this ship not drop anchor? Why did it just continue heading over and then eventually T-bone this U.S. military ship that's carrying the U.S. military supplies, obviously? And it seems like it was almost done deliberately. And the fact that the captain of this ship was Russian makes you wonder if it was done deliberately. So let me know what you guys think on that too. That was a crazy story coming out today. So we'll probably have more updates on that later. Now for Vicegrad 24, Volkswagen is considering to start using its factories for production of military vehicles as Germany and Europe start rearming. The automaker has spare capacity as sales have plummeted in recent years. So we know Volkswagen inside of Germany hasn't been doing good for a long time now. They've been losing a lot of money. And we've been hearing that many countries in Europe are going to start rearming now and building lots of weapons. So it looks like Volkswagen wants to start using its factories for producing military vehicles. Okay, so they're probably going to start getting into the military business now, as that's where a lot of the money is going to be allocated, is for military production, as we know that Europe is heavily rearming right now, as they've been announcing. So looks like Volkswagen wants to change up and get out of the civilian industry, start moving into the military industry now. Okay. Now for military news UA, Maxar has restored Ukraine's access to satellite images. Okay, so Maxar, just like 2 days ago, had announced they had unfortunately had to stop their shared intelligence with Ukraine, also letting Ukraine use their satellites to get satellite images inside of Russia, let's say, or in eastern Ukraine. But looks like Maxar has restored the ability for Ukraine to access their satellites again, as just yesterday we heard the U.S. had lifted the restrictions for shared intelligence and also military aid for Ukraine. So now moving on to military news UA. At night, Ukrainian military shot down 98 out of 133 Russian UAVs. Another 20 UAVs were lost in location due to electronic warfare action. Okay, so just your update for today to let you know how many drones were going into Ukraine last night. 133, quite a bit of drones. It looks like 98 of them being shot down and many others being suppressed by electronic warfare. So once again, we continue to hear that Ukraine is bringing down a good majority of these. And now our final update of the day from the Kyiv Independent. These are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of March 12th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. So here we go, guys. Final update. Russia's losses as of March 12th, 1,430 troops, 7 AFVs, 69 vehicles and fuel tanks, 3 tanks, 44 artillery systems, 111 UAVs, 1 MLRS, and 2 special equipment. Okay, so looks like a little bit less equipment being destroyed today is what I'm seeing here. Troop numbers up a little bit higher than usual. We've been seeing around 1,300. But many of these vehicles and stuff, only 7 AFVs, 69 vehicles and fuel tanks, and 3 tanks. I mean, that's really not as much equipment being destroyed today. So maybe not as many attacks overnight. 44 artillery systems, quite a bit of artillery systems destroyed, and 2 special equipment. So yeah, not too many attacks last night is what it looks like. And maybe Russia's more focused on the Kursk region right now. But yeah, 2 major things to keep an eye on is number one, Russia accepting this peace deal or maybe rejecting it. We'll see what happens with that. And then the other thing that I really want to keep an eye on is the Kursk region, okay? Because things are just changing over there so quickly. I mean, within the last 3 days, there's been massive changes to the front line over there. And it looks highly likely that Ukraine may get pushed out of the Kursk region sometime in the next week or two, and we could be seeing major withdrawals over there. So I'll keep an eye on that, and if we get more information, I'll do a separate video and let you guys know what's going on. But that's going to be it for today's update. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in, and let me know what you think of all these details down below in the comment section. That's it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. With that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.